Hello, everyone. My name is Creative, and welcome to the SEI podcast. Today, I'm here with Chad Hugghins from the SEI Foundation, and today we're going to be talking about what's happening in SEI. We're going to be talking about technology, innovation, community, the grant program, which everyone's really excited about, what opportunities, and what's to come in 2025. Chad, welcome. How are you doing today?
Doing great, man. I'm excited to chat with you.
Well, Chad, you and I met in 2022 in New York, NFT NYC in a small basement in the bottom. We were both, well, I was just getting started as a content creator, and I connected with you, and I've been able to still work with you, connect with you as your journey as a chief growth officer, a marketing director, vice president of marketing. You have a ton of experience, especially around the Web3 blockchain technology, and now you have a new role. Love for you to tell us about your new role with SEI.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you brought up that basement. I was literally just thinking this morning. There's Web3 people. It's funny. There's people you've met in real life and people you haven't. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I remember meeting you in real life. And I was like, oh yeah, it was the what was it called? The Polygon Studios Hub, I think is what we called it in the NFT NYC. But yeah, man, it's been great to know you and reconnect over all these years. I'm at the SEI Foundation now, leading the marketing here. I've been here about 3 months. Super excited from the community, obviously the tech, the pipeline from the BD team, just crushing it. Everything's knock on wood, going in the right direction right now. So it's really fun.
You are doing something right, because I'm hosting my regular spaces, my live podcast shows, and I keep hearing, hey, did you hear about SEI? Hey, did you see what SEI is doing? Hey, you got to check out this blockchain. So there's some marketing behind this, and I think there's a really smart guy behind it. And come to find out, it's you, Chad.
Well, I'm no puppeteer, if that's what you're saying. I think if anything, it's pouring fuel on different fires that are out there. So like that was one of the first things I did joining the eco. I didn't know anyone, didn't know anybody on the SEI Foundation either on the team there. So I came in super fresh, and so there's some objectivity, I guess, to my perspective and stuff like that. But yeah, first things first, with marketing in Web3, it's about the community, and that was one of the things that sold me on the SEI Foundation. Is community first is literally one of our core values, and it's not just a platitude. We repeat that, sort of cult like at the beginning of our all hands meetings, that we say is community first. So yeah, right out of the gate, that's hopping into crypto Twitter, hopping into all these spaces, meeting a one-on-one with a bunch of different people who are doing a bunch of different stuff, and trying to make it in Web3, or help evangelize what's going on at SEI. So that's really, if anything, is it's not me. I'm not like a big KOL or anybody like that, but I like to find people in the community where it's like, oh, let's be bullish on this person. Let's help them out, and we've got some various sort of like programmatic ways we do that I'm sure we're going to talk about as well.
Attention all content creators. Ready to elevate your brand? Webby Social is your ultimate platform designed for you. Create, connect, and monetize with the use of our advanced tools. Whether you're sharing your latest videos, hosting a live event, or launching your own social token, join the Web3 revolution with Webby Social today. Visit webbysocial.com to get started. Yeah, man. The SEI Foundation hit a home run when he landed you. You are an all-star in this space. You have my respect from day one. You've been working with, and some of your peers that you have worked with, Jack, who's a good friend of mine, Nikki, who we just talked about, some of the most amazing creators, innovators in the space that are really community focused, right? And I think I know what you're going to bring to the table, and that's why I jumped on this opportunity to get on the SEI train and network with you and connect with you. And I'm excited for today's conversation. We've got a couple questions, and we're going to dive into it right now because we're going to talk about the community, the ecosystem, the grant program, which a lot of people are excited about. I am myself. We'll talk about opportunities, and then 2025 goals for SEI, which is right around the corner. We're a couple months, I think 2 months out before the new year. So let's jump into it. The first question I have for you: how has the SEI community grown since it started? Like since it started, let's say about 6 months ago.
Yeah, so I think it was an interesting time when I joined about 3 months ago, because obviously Say is still a relatively new chain and a relatively new token, right? And so like with a lot of TGEs, there was a ton of hype right when that happened, and of course, sort of the trickle down effects of that kind of action is a bunch of community euphoria, basically. um like most things, it's hard to maintain that level of euphoria. And so I sort of came in on, I don't want to say like a low, but I think the community was looking for what's next, or whatever. Some people had migrated out to go, pursue other narratives, or whatever. So it was a very interesting time to join. To be clear, like the foundation and everybody at the foundation who predated me, like none of that really had to do with what they were doing. A lot of these are like macro environments and stuff like that, and just sort of the cyclical nature of tokens and crypto markets in general. But so since I've joined, I think the thing is, that also happened to be when we started like this $10 million creator fund, and some of the stuff we can talk about later with how we work with Gitcoin, and we're trying to resource and invest in creators. But also we had just shipped what is called Say V2, which is a massive tech undertaking to bring Say to be fully EVM compatible, um, which is a huge deal. And so all of this, like, the growth and the vibes or whatever in the community over the last couple months, it really has to do with V2 sort of coming to reality, and the growth potential for what can happen when an extremely performant EVM compatible blockchain launches.
Yeah, and I guess, like, what are some key milestones that you guys have really stood out to you since you've been a part of this foundation?
Sure. So I mean, what you're doing at the foundation is you're trying to steward the growth of the network, right? And to be clear, just so everybody understands how it's sort of structured, you have a completely different entity called Say Labs, and those are the guys, the engineers, the big brains that are actually building the protocol, right? And so they are the ones that shipped V2. The Say Foundation is completely separate, right? Completely separate entity, and we are basically stewarding the growth of the protocol. So we've got a
Got it.
big, amazing BD team that is going out and selling the protocol and trying to convince people to come over and deploy. And then we've got the marketing and community under me that's doing a number of things. We're trying to help and resource all of the founders and these projects and these other protocols that are deploying on Say, and help them go to market within this new economy we're sort of building. And then we've got sort of the broader retail and consumer audience, which is essentially like the demand side of the economy that we do need to stimulate in different ways, especially in the early days. So yeah, I think some of the key metrics are the like ecosystem, or like economic metrics that everybody follows, and none of them are perfect, but I will toot our horn a little bit. Because I was putting together a sort of a overview of this last quarter. So in the last 3 months, Say has been number one across all L1s in both TVL, total value locked, and also daily active addresses by growth, right? Not by total numbers, but by growth, because we're very new. But the key there is things are trending in the right direction very, very fast.
I think once people figure out what works for them, what's compatible, what's easy to use, I think that's when you get more adoption. And I think when it comes to the blockchain, I think UX and UI is so important to be able to create smart, contracts and smart apps. You know, like what is some of your developers focusing on right now? Like what is like some upcoming technology that they're developing right now that kind of enhance that?
Yeah, so I think what's unique about say on the tech side, really two things, and one is not that new, but we're really taking it to the nth degree. One is TPS, right? Transactions per second, and that's been a big blockchain metric that everybody follows for a long time, and even when I was back in the Ethereum space and doing stuff with Polygon, it was always like, well, Ethereum can't scale, right? And the TPS, I don't even know what it is, but it's a very small amount of TPS, especially when stuff started to take off in the last bull run. So Polygon had a great TPS, but you had this side chain thing where you had to bridge over and all that deal. With say the TPS is just on another level,
It really
right?
is.
We're talking like 10,000 transactions per second potential. To be honest with you, the number the number goes up all the time. I think publicly, I would have to check. I may be wrong, but I think publicly we've set up to like 12,000 transactions per second.
Mm.
The thing about it is those gigabrains at the say labs team, like it's gonna keep going up. You know what I mean? We're not going to publicly say any of the numbers that internally we may be testing and whatnot, but it's going to keep getting faster. And that's basically fast in the sense of scalability, right? But the one that is a little more unique and a little newer in like at least in like the broader crypto, audience of people trying to understand this stuff is time to finality, or you'd see it abbreviated as TTF.
Mm.
And that is, again, if you've been around for a while and you used to transact on like Ethereum, the actual, main chain. I mean, I remember when I first came in, it would be minutes before my transaction that I submitted and approved actually verified on the blockchain.
Oh yeah.
And that was a weird thing in the tech industry because in the Web 2, non Web 3 space, you're talking about latency. And everybody knows, if you're doing anything digitally, any slowdown in the UX is you're just going to start churning users. And so we, digital natives and whatnot, expect basically instant latency these days. We're very spoiled with how fast the internet is on most applications. And so what you had previously was a really weird design space for an app developer, right? Is like, let's figure out how to make an application in whatever vertical, but also we got to keep in mind that when our users submit their transactions, they're waiting forever to actually know that they went through. Say's completely changed the game on that. Say is sub 1 second finality, which is the closest currently there is to instant latency in the blockchain space. And again, that's another metric where it's going to continue, like the engineers are going to continue to double down on that. And what that does is open up a whole other design space for founders and app developers and whatnot to be able to not have to do all these weird, I don't want to say weird because some of them are very, legitimate, but sort of like additional infrastructure layers or whatever on top of what they're doing to try to scale stuff or to try to speed stuff up. Like the native chain itself, extremely scalable, extremely fast. And that's basically Say's positioning is to take that to the nth degree.
Man, I'm juiced up, man. That's one of the things that we've been waiting for a while. And back in the day, we used to have to wait 15 minutes, 20 minutes for transactions, or like bridging back in the day from like L2 to L1 used to take forever, and you just cross your fingers and close your eyes that it went through, right? Now we're getting this streamless experience, right? The user experience that we have with the Web 2, right? And when it comes to retail shopping, when it comes to being at a restaurant, When it comes to purchasing anything in the real world, people want that fast transaction, right? We want to get that confirmation approved. Let's go, right? We don't want to have to wait there. And that's been the big challenge for blockchain, right? And be able to have not only have something that's fast, but also secure. So tell me a little bit about the security side of things of how SEI is working.
Yeah, so I mean, on the security side, it's industry standard security. The chain itself originally was a COSM WASM chain. We still support that. That's sort of considered say V1. And on V2, it's the EVM itself. So um, for any developer, like the security is, to be clear, a lot of that is on the developer and auditing it correctly and building the correct smart contract. So from our perspective, it really comes down to finding the developer tools that are standard enough to have a developed enough sort of dev infrastructure ecosystem to where the projects launching on the chain are using completely legitimate dev tools, if that makes sense. So like
Absolutely.
the EVM, I think the thing for people to understand is one of the reasons for say V2 that was so pragmatic is that of developers in crypto, 9 out of 10 of them are EVM developers, right? And so for say, it was clearly like, well, that's where they are, and that's everybody knows how to use that. And then you add on all the other dev infrastructure on top of that, whether they're sort of dev kit shops like a Third Web or RPCs like Alchemy or whatever. Those are all completely vetted, completely robust things. This isn't like new territory for them. So on the security side, that's sort of a roundabout answer, but to me, that's the main thing we can do is to make sure the dev tooling and whatnot is from extremely verifiable, trusted sources.
Absolutely. Yeah. Security is a big thing. So that's why I wanted to talk about it. And then I'm also a Third Web ambassador, and I did see say is on there. It's ready to go. You can create and deploy your smart contract. You can create your game already, tie into it. So tying your blockchain into an open source platform or open source community is extremely big for getting new developers on there, getting new people that maybe don't want to use marketplaces, right? If they want to do NFTs and then want to kind of build their own contract, so they own their own contract. So obviously, it can go on chain. So there's a lot of benefits when it comes to that. Let's dive a little bit to the community side of things. What role does the community feedback play in SEI's development roadmap?
It's everything, man. I tweeted this a while back, but to me, community development is like 90% listening, right? And not just, again, these aren't just like empty platitudes. We get in there and oftentimes, to be honest with you, I'm anonymously listening into these Twitter spaces and stuff like that. I want to know what the real is, right? And what people are saying, and that can bubble up and trickle into feedback to a variety of places within the foundation, and even stuff we deliver over to our counterparts on the say labs side that are actually building the protocol itself. So man, community is everything. And again, the way I think about it is like we're trying to steward the growth and development of a full-on economy, and like economics 101, it's supply and demand. So to me, the community is the entire demand side of what we're doing. It's incredibly important. It's a strange, I don't want to say, like an interesting problem though, to be building this early stage economy, because we're sort of balancing the supply and demand side as we go, right? You don't want to have all this demand and hype, and it's just crickets on what they can actually do on chain. At the same time, nobody wants to launch a bunch of stuff on chain if there's nobody there to actually be their users. So it's not a like one's more important than the other. They're both equal. It's a dance.
Yeah, but you guys are going to get to a point where you guys are going to be big time. And trying to manage a community is always a challenge, right?
Well, I think so long term,
Yep.
right? If you're talking multiple years, like we're in an interesting early stage thing. We're all very early in the industry as a whole. And if you're here at SEI, you're very, very early.
Attention all content creators. Ready to elevate your brand? Webby Social is your ultimate platform designed for you. Create, connect, and monetize with the use of our advanced tools. Whether you're sharing your latest videos, hosting a live event, or launching your own social token, join the Web3 revolution with Webby Social today. Visit webbysocial.com to get started.
In a specific economy. Eventually, if things go according to plan and the economy takes off, you don't need this foundation stimulating everything all the time, because ideally one of these or many of these projects on the supply side, whether it's a game or a DeFi protocol or whatever it is, really finds product market fit. And then the users in the demand side will just naturally sort of suck into that, because that's what's so powerful about the product market fit. And we won't really have that much to do with it, to be honest with you. And that's why, what we're doing now is extremely important, but mainly what we're doing is trying to find on the BD side, projects, founders, people like that we think could potentially do that. Right. And then on the demand side with the community, honestly, it's about finding people that want to be along for that ride, but also are willing to get in the trenches with all of these founders and give super early user feedback. Like, that's invaluable. And for a founder, that's a really rare experience to be able to ship something, immediately get your first 100 users, 1,000 users or whatever, but also they're so die hard on what you're building and the economy you're all in, that they're wanting to really help you, give you good feedback, be those early beta testers, put their own liquidity in, et cetera, et cetera.
Man, that is so important. I'm building out a platform called Webby Social, which and we just reached 100 beta users, and the feedback is mind blowing because the way we thought it was going to work, it was pretty accurate, but the way people use technology is also different. Accessibility, file weight compliant. The people want bigger text, smaller text. Maybe they don't want icons. Maybe they want text, right? Of how they use native apps, right? And how they interact with technology. So it's so important to get that feedback, especially when you're developing something that's going to be international. And that's what blockchain is, right? Or Web3 is. It's not just a small Texas community that's using it. It's everybody that can tap into the internet, can actually tap into these new solutions. Let's switch gears a little bit, Chad. And there's a big hype right now around SEI, and it has to be around the grant program. And I know there's a lot of content creators, a lot of gamers, a lot of people that are building on the blockchain that are really excited about this grant program. And it's something that I guess a lot of us have been wanting, right, to see a blockchain kind of give back to kind of help support the developers and also uplift them as well too. Could you share more about the SEI grant program and how it supports developers and innovators?
Sure. So the one you're specifically talking about is the creator grant program, right? So we announced a $10 million creator fund. And you can go back and look at the announcement on the blog and stuff. It's basically a general purpose fund that we want to use to incentivize and reward people creating, right? Which has become sort of the term for influencer or content creator, KOL, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
People that are spending their time, oftentimes their free time outside of their friggin' second. It's their second job or almost like a hobby type thing, their nights and weekends. We want to make sure they're feeling, the love more than just in intangible ways. The interesting thing though, as a foundation is we also need to be pretty objective in how we do stuff like that oftentimes. Because technically we are in favor of anybody that's helping to grow the ecosystem. So what we came up with is a big partnership with Gitcoin. And if you're not familiar with Gitcoin, it's an amazing platform. They basically, invented quadratic funding to a certain degree. Lots of people use it. They're primarily known for public good funding in Web3. But what we've done is we have this $10 million and we're doing these essentially $250,000 rounds where we approve different applications who want to come in to basically a big application pool. And then there's a voting period where the community ultimately decides who we're going to match funds for out of that $250,000. So a number of reasons for that. Like, we want to be able to diversify who's getting this money, but we also want to incentivize people to bring their best ideas to the table and stuff like that. And then, of course, as the foundation, this is one of those times when we want to make sure the community feels like they're in the driver's seat here, and is in the driver's seat. They're the ones casting the votes, which in this case, a vote is basically the same thing as a donation. And that donation and the vote count and how they all mix and match at the end of the voting round ends up, informing how the pool of money gets allocated to different people. So we've done 2 rounds so far, and I think it's gone well. It's one of those things where the community is obviously very invested in it.
Oh yeah.
We're very aware of that. I don't want to promise it'll ever be like a perfect process. That sort of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do here. And at the end of the day, we try to get enough sort of measures in place to make sure it's everything's above board and whatnot. But the current rounds right now, they actually, the application process just closed.
How much? How many people applied, Chad?
I think like over 400 or so.
How many people applied to the first one, and the second one, and the third one, and then where we're at now?
I would have to ask the community team. The first one, I think, was, I think people are a little skeptical of it.
Sure.
To be honest,
of course, you got to trust the brand.
Yeah. So the first one, not as much, but then I'm not sure if everybody fully understood the whole. We use a specific version of quadratic funding, which we can talk about if you want, but I don't think people fully wrap their mind around like what is this cluster matching quadratic funding thing. But then they saw the allocations and sure enough, like, yeah, real say hit everybody's wallet. And so round 2 had a lot of people that applied. Again, I think it was like we had 180 eventually approved for that round. These latest 2 rounds, we tried something different. We have parallel rounds, a little nod at the fact that we ship parallel execution on the EVM. But they're a little more specific. Number 3, that round is for DevRel content creators. And then the other one is for gaming content creators. So yeah, I'm looking at it now. I think it closed we had 400 applications. The DevRel round, there's about a little over 70 projects that got approved, and almost 200 on the gaming content creator one.
So what types of projects or ideas is the SEG team looking for to fund or partner with right now?
So I think the thing that we want here, we want anybody to be able to apply for these. We don't want this to be, you've got to be Creative Owls and have 10,000 plus followers or whatever. We get people from all over the world, of all sorts of experience levels. And the key is, it's not just like, here's my name, give me some money. It's an application. Like, tell us what you want to do. Tell us what your idea is, what your content series is, or whatever. And I should say, not us, the foundation, tell the community, right? Because once they're approved into the round, it's really the ball's in their court for a period of, it's almost like 2 weeks, where they need to go and get out the vote and ask people to vote for them, to evangelize their own idea or whatever. And then all they got to do is get people to donate. And I'll touch on the cluster matching quadratic funding real quick, because to be clear, the size of the donation is not really this is sort of like an inside tip, right? The size of the donation is not the biggest deal. So you could have your grandma, do $1,000 to you or whatever. Okay, that's one person. It's essentially one vote and the donation amount is registered. What cluster matching does, it's meant to sort of de-incentivize collusion and be Sybil resistant to a degree. And so the positive way to spin that is they're really looking in the way the vote is spread around between different projects for different like interactions. I'm probably not explaining that well, but basically, if you're an outlier and you're just over here and I'm like, I'm not going to interact with anybody, I'm just going to get all my buddies that have never interacted with anybody to vote for me, that you're not going to fare well. You really got to get in and mix it up with the community, with the other projects that are also approved. And that's how you really can have success with cluster matching quadratic funding. Again, we the foundation are not the ones controlling how the allocations go. But if you really want to take it seriously, yeah, it does require a little bit of work, to be honest with you, to try to, you know, have success in these rounds over the period of, you know, 2 weeks of the voting period.
Well, it is campaign season, right? So you got
Hopefully it's
to.
not that egregious, man. I get so many texts.
Well, you know, as you know, I guess everybody has to put on their marketing hat, right? Their community hat, hop into these, I guess these say spaces, and really, I wouldn't say really,
chill,
yeah, you
man.
got to show your project, and I think, you know, what would be, you know, your best advice for those that are interested in applying to the SEI program right now? I know you talked a little bit about like once you apply, but like, what would be your advice for those that are just interested into applying?
Yeah, I would say don't. Part of this is hopefully the downstream effect is, you know, new people coming into the ecosystem. Yes, probably incentivized by seeing, oh, I could get real money just for creating content. But in order to actually be successful in these Gitcoin rounds, they really do need to become a part of the community, and realize that there are OGs here that have been here for a long time,
Mm-hmm.
and their opinion matters.
Yeah.
And it's all the guys voting in these spaces, all these existing Discord servers. You need to get in there, get to know everybody, get to know the other applicants, spread the love, like pay it forward, you know, vote for other projects as well. And yeah, and then on top of that, hopefully you have a cool idea or a cool series that everybody's like, yeah, that's really cool. I'd like to see that. So I'll, you know, give you my $1 and my vote or whatever.
Yeah, and you talked about community, right? I think that's the first thing that we talked about. There's some OG say community members out here that been around. Who are some that come on top of your head right now that you know have been like killing it, have been doing successful? That I think maybe you need a shout out for the hard work of maybe building a community or building engagement.
Man, you're putting me on the spot, and they're all going to be looking to see who I say. So I want to preface this by saying I think this was one of the first things I noticed when I joined, um, was that there are a lot of OG people, and at a minimum, as the foundation, we need to recognize them, right? And that's not a big you know, process oriented thing for us to put in place at the foundation. It was literally just like, you know, let's tweet from the main handle, retweet one of their things from the main handle every now and then, or whatever. I think sometimes foundations, we can be guilty of getting I don't want to say distracted because it's a big part of the job, but our eyes go over here to all of these ecosystem projects that we're trying to support, and like, you know, serious business or whatever to announce these different integrations and stuff like that. But the demand side of this economy, the community, is just as important. So let me list some names for you. Caveat: this is off the top of my head. It's not completely, you know, exhaustive. I think Frances is killing it. She's a young creator that goes by the Twitter handle of Corned Beef Lover. She does really good recaps on the ecosystem. I really like this guy King Ball. We'll probably have announced this by the time this comes out. He's one of the folks trying out like a say street team idea. We're sending him to permissionless in Salt Lake City. I like Heathen, man. Heathen's an interesting character. He's not doxxed. He's hilarious to me on the timeline. He's got about 1 million projects that he's running, but he's always a kick in spaces. Man, I'm big on Stevie and Nev, who are part of Crossover, and have great part of this is too with the global community. I sometimes think of them by their accents, right? So Nev is Australian, I believe, and Stevie, he's gonna hate me, but I think he's Australian. Maybe he's British. I'm not the best at detecting them all the time. And of course, on the accent side, I would be remiss to not mention the legend Crypto Bint, who is from the nation of Scotland. And we've had a good time working with Bint specifically on some Magic Eden stuff that everybody's been very excited about. But again, that's not exhaustive. Roy Lopez, obviously the whole Fuckers crew is amazing. I'm probably forgetting a ton of people.
There's a lot of them out there for sure, and many of them are building, creating. I know they also have the S3 community that they built out, and there's other ones that are out there. So just a big kudos to all you content creators, innovators, gamers in the SEI. I think it's important to shout you guys out. You guys are the ones that are building the hype, that are building the community, and doing the groundwork and doing God's work to get this going. I wouldn't have joined SEI if it wasn't for the community or someone coming into a space and sharing it, and being open arms, and the community is extremely welcoming. I think I put out a post and then a lot of people reached out. My DMs got flooded, and people would say, hey, what can I do to help you? What can I help you onboard, and so forth. So the vibe is there. The mission is there. So big kudos to everybody in the SEI community that's building, but it comes from the top. It comes from the leadership. And I think we've got some great leaders that are out there that are setting the tone of how we should interact with people. And you guys are just kind of, giving them the tools for them to use, Chad, and I see that you guys are doing great with that. Let's talk about opportunities, and then we'll talk about goals. So opportunities, how can someone become a SEI ambassador or key contributor to the network?
So I would say, first of all, you did it right? You heard about SEI. We call that, you got SEI curious. That's what our community team, in our marketing funnel or whatever, right below that top stage, it's okay, people, we need to get them SEI curious. And so if you get SEI curious and you're new, do exactly what Creative did. Figure out who these OGs are, reach out to them. Yeah, they will be welcoming. That's I'm very thankful. That's a reflection of the community as a whole. And they'll intro you. You can join spaces that make sense for whatever your situation is. They're happening at all times of the day all over the world. So I would say, get involved there, and just learn who everybody is. I would say find a home, so to speak. You mentioned S3. I think the Crossover crew has another really good one. There's some different Telegram chats. Find like your crew you want to hang out with, your neighborhood, your watering hole, or whatever. I think that makes your experience way stickier in the ecosystem. And then from there, listen, the foundation is going to try to bring opportunities to as many people as possible, and take advantage of those if you have the time to do it. Gitcoin is one of them. There will probably be other ones that we sort of, programs or whatever we announce. I would say also, I tell this to everybody, if you've got a really great idea or something you're trying to do, we're not, this city on a hill kind of thing. Like, you can DM me, you can DM anybody on the team. We should not be hard to get a hold of. And so, that's an open invitation. Bring your ideas to us. We're looking for good ideas, quite literally. So I think there's going to be a lot. And as the ecosystem develops, there are obviously like all these different projects as they start to grow, as they start to get funding, there will be like legitimate job opportunities as well in the broader ecosystem.
Attention all content creators. Ready to elevate your brand? Webby Social is your ultimate platform designed for you. Create, connect, and monetize with the use of our advanced tools. Whether you're sharing your latest videos, hosting a live event, or launching your own social token, join the Web3 revolution with Webby Social today. Visit webbysocial.com to get started. And you know what I like? You, Mike, and Phil, you guys are in the trenches. you guys actually get into spaces. You guys actually talk. You guys actually communicate. And I love to see that, Chad. I really do. So I definitely encourage you to continue doing that. I know Mike, as soon as someone posts something about, say, I know Mike is in that tweeting and say, I want more, right? I want more. So he does that. So that's good. That's really encouraging that we're getting that from leadership and you guys actually care.
Yeah, so I don't want to leave people out. You're right on all those fronts. I would add in Tommy, who's our NFT BD lead. Austin and Devil K or Tezuka Tez are part of the community team. They're like, I always talk. I feel like they're in the mosh pit of the community. They're always out there, and I would say too, like, to flag with somebody like Mike. Mike is infrastructure BD.
Yeah.
Right. I actually gave Mike a shout out in our internal all hands today on I'll do, like, we have our core values, and like I said, one of them is being community first, and I'll sort of name somebody to give them kudos on exemplifying that. And usually it's just from the marketing team, but I did today shout it out Mike, and ironically he actually wasn't there. He's at a conference, but yeah, it's from the top down, and including the founders, Jay and Jeff. Like, we're trying to figure out more ways to get them involved. Obviously, they are founders. They've got, day to day, it's very different than like you or me and what we're doing, but they are very into it and wanting to figure out ways to get to know the community. And so I would expect to see more of that, literally from the very top.
Yeah, shout out to the SEI Foundation team. I'm new, so I'm starting to get you guys' names. So shout out Austin, and shout out everybody that brought up there. You guys are doing great. From outside looking in, you guys are very attractive. I got the say itch of what's going in. You got some other content creators. One of them who I really like is Chris D, who's really on the video content creation. So shout out to him. I know he used to work. I don't know if he's still with the Shotgun crew. Great crew over there of creators, influencers, and really bringing light to the blockchain and help educating people. And he's a great candidate for the content creation and supporting people. Let's talk about some goals, right? I saw that there could be something going on with Magic Eden. Is there some type of announcement that's going on with that? Give us the alpha here today.
Yeah, what I'm trying to think of Metaverse Johnny on his who works at Magic Eden.
I'm familiar. Shout out to Metaverse Johnny, real OG in the space.
He said something on his space the other day on this question that I thought was such a hilarious, like, redirection. It was like, one would think in such a scenario it would be likely, which is so, like, diplomatic of him. But yeah, I can't confirm or deny anything right now, but I can confirm that the community's gonna love what is probably a likely scenario.
Yeah, Metaverse Johnny is definitely PR trained. He's great, man. Shout out to Metaverse Johnny, real OG in the Polygon space and what he's been doing. Definitely leading Magic Eden from the ground up. Started as an intern and been building other blockchains and scaling that solution. Definitely want to give him a shout out. So that's good to know, Chad. You guys are tapping into different resources, trying to get out there. What is SEI's primary goal for 2025, and how does the team envision SEI's position in the broader blockchain industry?
Yeah, so it's to scale the EVM, right? That is our mission, and it's not hyperbole to say we are just getting started there. And so the downstream effect of this on this supply side, on all the different projects and the BD stuff, is being EVM compatible opens up a whole universe of applications in some of these really big blue chip companies like Magic Eden, for instance, other wallets that, again, I don't want to confirm or deny anything, but people will be very excited about some of the wallets coming to the space. So we're just scratching the surface on the sort of fertile soil that being EVM compatible brings us. And so, yeah, from there, what we need to do is stoke the flames, right? And keep pouring fuel on the fire both on the BD side. And I mean, listen, that's one of the most fun things about working at a foundation is I'm literally all day long, I'm just looking at alpha, right? For crypto Twitter, uh, people, I'm looking at all of this amazing stuff that is going to be launched and announced and integrated soon. And again, I can't say anything, but I will say 2025, I mean, the end of 2024 is going to be jam packed. It's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of stuff for people to do across the board. And then on the community side, yeah, I think we're also just scratching the surface of like, how can we further empower community members to not just sort of be individuals that we know, but to take more ownership over the community, and how can we invest in them in different ways to do that. And I think, again, we're early. This is by the numbers. We're still like a pretty small crew on the community side. And we'll look back on these days as like, man, that was fun when we all knew each other and all this sort of stuff. Eventually we'll be so big.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, I didn't know you were into SEI. And so I think we're laying the groundwork for that, like, next sort of lift off of going to like 1 to 100 kind of thing.
Well, I'm definitely excited for it. I know I tapped in. I actually got accepted to the grant program today. I actually low-key signed up last night. I was thinking about it, and I've got some cool ideas. And if you know some of the things that I've done with the metaverse, video content creation, I'm looking forward to kind of bringing that to the table and kind of talk about those things. And working with you, Chad, I think that's one thing I also want to work with is your BD team, your growth team. As a content creator, you always want to tie to the marketing team, figure out how you can cross-pollinate, because when you come up with new objectives and new missions or new campaigns, you're going to try to go back to who are the creators that you can trust, right? Who are the people that you want to implement new campaigns? And I definitely want to be one of those things. I'm going to be looking forward to doing more of these podcast sessions with more of the SEI leadership, and then getting into the content creators, and then maybe going into the gaming to see where the community is thriving, what's hot, what's not, into the space. So Chad, I want to thank you for your time, and I have a safe round, what I call a safe round. What is your safe round? What is the last thing that you want to say to someone that's just starting out, getting interested into SEI, or they got the itch of SEI? What would be your message to them?
Oh man, that's a good. I would say like this applies to all of Web3, and maybe even all of just like your professional life, but is especially applicable to SEI. Remember, it's a small town. There. I say what I say to my kids on the way to school is like, be kind. You know what I mean? Everybody's trying to make it. I think kindness and humility and enthusiasm goes a really long way in my book.